This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries, the best name in the RV and marine industry. These lithium batteries are designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty. The best solution for your battery anxiety, so go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Whether your adventure is on the road, on the water, or off the grid, Battleborn Batteries keep you out there longer.
Hi, everyone. This is Kenny, and I am so excited to announce that SnapPad has become a sponsor for the show. It means so much to us to have their support. I purchased SnapPads for our RV over 2 years ago, and I can honestly say if something happened to them today, I would replace them by tomorrow. They have saved my back and setup time by not needing to crawl underneath our Class A to set up blocks under our jack stands. They truly make setting up our RV a snap.
For me, they reduce vibration in the fifth wheel, took 15 minutes to install, and never come off. SnapPads also add a little something extra to the appearance of the jacks. Go check them out at rvsnappad.com.
You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Hi, everyone. Today we are talking about an important part of RVing, which is clean water. We have Keith Bernard, owner of CLEAR2O, on the show, and he is going to talk about how he went from working for the company to purchasing it. We also discussed the importance of clean water and how all filters are not created equal. Even if your RV comes with a built-in filter, you may want to invest in a secondary filter as well. Keith also announces the launch of their new water filter called the Dirt Guard. So let's get this episode started.
Hi, Keith. Thanks for joining us on the show today. The way we usually get started is for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this business, and a little bit about company CLEAR2O.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate that. Just a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Keith Bernard. I'm president of Applica Water Products, which actually most people have never heard of. It actually is the CLEAR2O brand that we put all our products under, and that's the product line that you're going to see out in the marketplace. So, president of CLEAR2O. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I've got 2 kids and 1 dog that's 1 year old that's usually driving us crazy. Other than that, we are a small business owners with Applica Water Products, and I actually work that with my wife as well, who is in charge of all of the marketing and all of the good packaging that we do. She drives all of that aspect of it. So we work hand in hand together, do our trade shows, etc., and go from there. A little bit of history on the company is that it actually was started in 2008. Our focus at that time was actually in water pitchers. So we made water pitchers for kitchen utilizing filtration. We came about it in a little bit different way. We wanted to do a little research, and we figured out that the most consumers wanted their water faster, they wanted it cleaner, and they wanted a little bit more of it. So we specifically designed a water pitcher that actually achieved all of that. And it actually hooked up to your faucet and used the water pressure from your sink to be able to go through a little stronger carbon filter. And we actually were selected by Consumer Reports in 2009 and actually were named #1 pitcher at that point in time because of the amount of contaminants we actually removed. And actually, they continued to rename us that all the way up through 2019. Now, last year they changed the way they tested, so we're no longer there. But for 10 years, we were #1 with this technology overall. I've been involved in the business for quite some time, but not necessarily always the owner. In 2017, the company became available, and I actually bought the company, and now between my wife and myself, again, run the company. We're the owner operator, so we do everything. It says president on my card, but really it could say almost anything. It could say UPS guy. We may be driving things to mail, or we may be cleaning up, or we're answering questions on the internet. If you send us an email, myself or my wife are usually the ones that are going to respond back to you.
Was there a specific reason why you chose to buy the business, or you just seemed like the next step, or were you interested in taking the business further than it currently was? I'm just a little curious.
Sure. Well, my background is sales, marketing, and product development, and that's where I've spent most of my career up to that point in time. And I actually worked on that original pitcher. That was one of my projects to bring into the marketplace. But I didn't necessarily take it straight to market. I actually stepped back into the company in 2010 and was operating it for the owner at that time. And then over time, we just thought we could do a lot more for this company and this brand. We really felt that we had an opportunity to be able to bring out more new products. A capital company had owned it originally. It was a spinoff from a larger company, actually, all of the background on it. And they were cleaning out their portfolio. They didn't want to own any more consumer product companies. So they asked me if I could actually identify an owner. And I immediately said, I would like to be that. And so we worked out something very quickly. And it worked out really well for us. We're very happy and have now taken it and expanded the product lines and done a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but couldn't do unless you're the actual owner.
Keith, was the business originally developed for RVers? It doesn't sound like it too much. It sounds like maybe it was for home use.
No, it was for kitchen products, and we actually expanded out into water bottles and filters, et cetera. There's always been a filtration company and always focused in on water filtration. So actually, the way we got into RVing is as my wife and I bought an RV back in 2016 with the attempt to get our kids away from computers and get them out into some state parks and see some things that we call trees and have a little more activity outside. So we did that, and we utilized the available technologies at the time, the products that are on the marketplace for being able to have water filters. Of course, starting out like everybody, took bottled water with us as well. And we just didn't really feel like we were getting what we could actually do ourselves. We knew that the technologies that we had in our own products could actually be easily applied, and we could actually create our own filters. So we did that for our own use. And it just, as a lot of these things do, became an opportunity to be able to expand that out and take it out into the marketplace. So we went ahead and launched that on our website, which we carry a number of products on, and it is also on Amazon and a couple of other sites as well. We ended up getting a call from Walmart saying that they were interested. So, it's just kind of all gone from there. That gave us the opportunity to be able to bring out even more new products, because once we open that door, it's just there's a lot more opportunity for bringing out better quality filtration for RVs. Now, that doesn't mean we have walked away from our kitchen business. We still have our kitchen business, and we still have development going on for that as well, and intend to continue to bring out new products over there. But being that an RV is a kitchen on the road, they kind of work together to some degree, and similar types of products that we make for the kitchen, almost all of them can also be used for the RV as well.
I would imagine a call from Walmart must be a pretty big deal. Were you guys purposely seeking out the big, I guess they're called big box stores, or did Walmart just happen to stumble upon you guys and found you and gave you a call?
Well, it's to answer your first question, we were selling online, and that really was our intent. Down the road, if we ever had that opportunity to be able to sell in the stores, but that's a different business model than your standard online model. But when we had that opportunity, we had to take a hard look at that and said, yes, that's the direction we want to go. And it's going to give us the opportunity to be able to take our products out to a broader audience than we would just get by just trying to market it themselves online. It was a big deal. It was all the best things and all the worst things at the same time, as you can guess. We worked our way through it, and it was quite a blessing, actually, overall. And I'm not still sure how we kind of got it done, but we did get it done. Now we have opportunity to be able to expand on that.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Why should RVers care about water filtration?
Well, that's a really good question, because overall, people usually care about the water that they have at their home. At least they have an opinion about it. They know whether or not they think that their community gives relatively good water, or depending on who you talk to, they may say, oh, our water's terrible for whatever reason. But whatever you leave your home, you're now going into other communities that may have better water, but quite often have worse water. Even though you may have decent water at your house, you get to some of these campsites and you're seeing color changes, you're seeing particulates that may not be normally in your water at home. And it's a lot of it because of the different infrastructures that are in place, or it may be that it's well water done at that campsite as well. And people aren't necessarily used to all of that, whether it be the taste or the color or the odors that sometimes come along with those types of things. So we really think that you can have better water almost everywhere. Just learn to filter it and filter it properly. And by doing so, what you're going to end up with is a clean glass of water and not have to necessarily haul the bottled water along with you. The key thing is so many people bring that bottled water, and of course, single-use plastic is one of our bigger problems in America on all of the landfills, as well as all of the plastics that are out in the water and the oceans, et cetera. So, you can do your part and help out by just filtering your water and make it so much better for yourselves and for everyone else as well.
When we go to campgrounds, the first thing I do is I'll turn the water on before I connect to it. And it does shock me a lot of times that the water comes out brown for a couple seconds before it becomes clear. I don't even know if that's something that everybody does, but I always turn the water on before I connect to it at a campground. And especially in the wintertime, off season, it seems to happen more often than in the summer when everybody's using the water.
I would tell you our first and foremost tip to everyone is always turn on the water when you get to a new campsite. Always flush that line, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to have some type of sediment stuck there at that faucet or at that spigot. If there's a lot of iron in the water, you're going to get a lot of rust, and that's the brown water you're seeing quite often that's coming through. And so the best thing to do is just run it for a couple seconds, flush that line out, and generally the water will be better. Because if you don't, and you do use a filter, then you're washing all of that into your filter directly. So a good way to clog it up real quick is to put a bunch of mud in it. And so the same thing goes if you put that straight into your RV, then that's going to go straight to your sink, your shower, whatever it may be. Or worse, help kind of clog up some of your pipes over time.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I've never done that. Kenny, I'm not sure how you, was that just something you did, or somebody told you to do that, or?
I just happened to do it one time early on while RVing. To be honest, maybe I went to wash my hands first. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not sure. And the water came out brown, and I was like, whoa, that's not, I was like, I wasn't expecting that. And then I started doing it at all the campgrounds that we went to. And it's like a 50-50 chance. Sometimes the water comes out brown. Sometimes it comes out clear. And like I said, during the winter months, when they're not being used as much, it seems to happen more often.
Yeah, a lot of the times it depends really on, was that campsite used that day and somebody else actually cleared that water, or has it been a few days since it's been used? The longer it sits there, the more opportunity for it to build up.
And I guess by turning the water on and you said, flushing that line, just because the water's coming out clear, I guess doesn't necessarily mean that it's clean. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct. First of all, you can't see microscopically, so you're not going to be able to see the majority of the problems are in the water itself. So it being clear is always a good starting point. Obviously, if it's brown or cloudy, then you can see that there's some problem with that water. But if the water is clear, then at least you know that it's not heavy in particulates. It's not heavy in things that are going to be able to clog up things overall. So generally, it's a good starting place. But you can't taste lead, you can't taste mercury, you can't taste these types of contaminants that are in the water. So in doing so, there's very strong possibility that you could be getting some of those types of things and never know it.
I see all different kinds of water filters on RVs. There's some that are like a thin, almost like a Coke bottle type screw-on filter. I see, as many as 3 large canister filters. I see some RVs have like an ozone type system installed under their main sink. What's the minimum that you guys recommend, the minimum amount of filtration an RVer should consider?
We always recommend that you have some level of filtration overall. And the reason why is worst case scenario, you're going to protect yourself against some of those brown water issues or some of the other things that may be in it. So the first filter you described is actually called an inline filter. It's a filter that actually goes on usually the spigot directly, and then the hose is attached, or sometimes people put it on the hose end and then connect it directly into their RV. And it kind of works either way. Our recommendation is always to put that on the spigot side, and I'll come back and talk about that after a while. But but generally those are always in line, and most of the filters on the marketplace, those are actually granular carbon. Granular carbon is an absorption material. As the water flows through it, it absorbs things like chlorine, some minor taste and odor issues that actually were then removed from the water. But depending on the manufacturer, they may or may not have a micron filter associated with them. And generally, let me just kind of talk a little bit about that because it's important for answering the rest of your question. When you talk about filtration, filtration is really broken up into multiple things. So just one thing that's called a filter is not all encompassing to all the things a filter should do. So when someone says this is a filter, it may be a filter, but it may be one type of filter, or it focuses on one type of contaminant, but there's multiple contaminants to deal with. Well, that may mean it blocks one thing, but the other contaminants pass through it. So you have to look at, and what we always want to do at CLEAR2O is try to help educate people to understand a little bit more of what they're looking for so that they can either improve their filtration, or if they need to pay a little bit more for a better filter, then they can understand what it's doing for them to be able to accomplish that, and so that they can feel better about what they're doing to make their water better overall. But there really is 3 types of filtration. The first you can guess is a blocking action. It just simply keeps larger particles from going through the filter. A coffee filter is actually a filter, right? It just blocks the coffee from passing through, but allows the solution to pass through. Depending on how tight that filter is measured in microns. Microns a millionth of a meter, so it's very, very, very tiny overall. And you want to pay attention to micron because the lower the micron, the more contaminants are going to be removed overall, more things it's going to block out. And again, this is a physical property, so it's physically blocking things from passing through overall. The second part of it is what's called, it's actually on the chemical side, and there's 2 types of filtration on that. One's called adsorption and one's called absorption. So obviously almost the exact same word, but one is what exactly it sounds like. It's absorption into the molecule itself, or it pulls it into the actual structure of the filter itself. The other adsorption is an ion exchange. So that actually is down on the molecular level. And this is when a contaminant comes through, it's attracted to that particular carbon molecule, as an example, and it actually bonds to it directly and actually connects to it. So you need all 3 different ways. So for example, lead's obviously been in the news a lot lately, but on a micron basis, lead is going to pass straight through that filter. There's nothing, it's so small, it's going to be way below even the tightest filters overall and pass straight through. It doesn't necessarily absorb well into carbon, so it needs that adsorption, that ion exchange, to be able to grab hold of it and molecularly bond to the filter itself. So when you have those types of things and it can do that bonding, then you're blocking that lead out, okay? But you need that type of filtration to do it. Now, most of the manufacturers out there don't talk about any of the things I'm talking about right now. They generally say, this is a filter, and they leave that up to the consumer to determine whether or not it's a filter that actually works for them. I just always would tell you, read the packages, look at what it does, see whether or not it's going to be removing the type of chemicals that you're looking for it to remove overall, or reduce. Not everything comes out completely, but you certainly want to reduce some of those contaminants. So most inline filters that we're talking about are granular carbon. What works very well on the adsorption basis, it absorbs chlorine that we already talked about. But unless it has a secondary filter, it doesn't necessarily take out much on the micron basis. So you have to look for one that actually takes out and has a secondary filter inside. Generally, the most popular one out there, they have 2 different models. One is a 20 micron, and it does have that secondary filter. And the other one's 100 micron, and they really don't have that secondary filter. But the filters look identical. Look on the outside. Unless you knew the different model numbers, you may not know the difference between the 2. You can generally say if it's a less expensive, it's probably going to be the higher micron. And if it's more expensive, it's probably going to be the lower micron between the two. But it's difficult for consumers to understand that, as they're out shopping on everything.
Are the two filters similar in size?
Side by side, they're identical.
Wow.
And same color, same design, same everything. So it comes down to having to educate yourself and find doubts about some of these things. But that inline filter is usually what you see mostly when you go into every campground. You see those filters out there. They're easy to use and they're easy to attach. They're disposable for the most part. But they're, depending on which model you buy, they're giving you minor levels of improvement overall. So I would tell you that they can improve your water. You can probably have better shower water. They're going to take out some taste and odor issues. If they are a heavy issue, if it's hydrogen sulfide, which is that rotten egg smell as an example, it will decrease it slightly, probably won't eliminate it. Quite often won't eliminate the iron taste that you get in some waters as well. For those types of things, you actually need to go to a higher level of technology. Now, our inline filter, we make a green filter, partly because we wanted to be identified with the green color so you can tell the difference between the two. And we make that with solid carbon block. And by making it out of solid carbon block, we actually start not with granules, but with carbon powder that are compressed into an entire solid structure. And that means that now we can control the micron. So we actually offer ours at 1 micron. And then secondarily, because it's a filter that we target contaminants, we can take out VOCs, take out lead, take out mercury, take out the hydrogen sulfide, et cetera. So you get a very clean water over there. So for most people, the inline is the easiest thing to start with. And then from there, you can move on to higher levels of filtration. So one thing we always ask about is, what are you going to use your water for? If it's for drinking, then you want to be at this higher level overall to be able to make your coffee or tea, whatever it may be, or just be able to cook. Alternatively, if you're just going to use it for showering, then granular carbon type filters can actually make an improvement over the water. It really depends on the starting water, how well, if that's good enough, or whether or not you need to add additional filtration.
Now, does the lower micron equal less flow?
Well, it can, and the lower micron you go, obviously it becomes restrictive at some point in time. We right now, with our 1 micron, are about 3.5 gallons per minute. And with the current ones that are in the market, the granular carbon, they're anywhere from 4 to 4.5 gallons per minute. So we're anywhere from 15% to 30% lower generally in that area. But most people determine how well their flow rate is by how well their shower is working. And the showers are anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 gallons per minute. So we're already offering more.
Yeah.
So generally, people don't necessarily notice a tremendous difference overall. It's when you go to the lower micron, it takes more things out and it does slow your flow down a little bit. But we've tried to design our products that they actually can have reasonable flow rate for all of the better water that you're getting.
And then I have one additional question on what you just explained. Maybe I misunderstood, but you can have the lower micron for the whole, the whole, like we're talking about. And then you can also have the absorption and adsorption that can all be in one filter.
That's correct. So the way we're able to do it is by using that solid carbon block. So all of the water has to pass through the wall of the filter. Now, when you're talking granular carbon, it's just granules. When you take one of those filters, you can shake it. You hear inside, you can hear the granules kind of shaking back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, the water can move in and around those granules. So usually it cuts a path through those granules as it passes through. Because we have a wall, all the water has to pass through that wall. And so that's the difference. And therefore, we can control the micron level of that as well. So the current filter that's granular, again, they put a 20 micron filter on the very end of it. So it actually is not the entire length. It's just a small filter that's on the very end. So that's how they're able to claim the 20 micron.
Oh, okay. So after it goes through the carbon, then it hits the 20 micron.
Right. It's about inch and a half or so filter that's inside. There's a piece of foam and then there's a small filter there. As opposed to ours, our entire filter is actually the filter. So you are going 1 micron through the entire length.
You have an inline product. What other RV focused filtration products do you have?
Let me jump to the other side of it overall, which is for the people that actually have a canister type system. There are a number of RVs that actually come with a canister. Usually it's a single canister. From there, that generally is put on by the manufacturer for a pre-filter to be used. So that will keep all of the sand and silt and sediment out for the most part. But it really doesn't do anything. It only does the blocking. It doesn't do the other types of filtration. So the water quality is going to be the same. It's not going to improve the taste or odor or remove anything actually from the water with just having a pre-filter. So we always recommend a secondary filtration system, if that's all you have, to have a secondary system for your drinking water. And what most people do is they'll use an inline filter and then they'll use that as their pre-filter, and then they'll use that secondary system. So across the board, we generally recommend trying to focus in on multiple stages of filtration. So for example, if the best thing to do is to have a pre-filter first, and then to go into a carbon filter after that. And if you go into a solid carbon block filter, then you're able to get, again, both the adsorption and absorption properties as well that goes through that. We have just recently brought out a dual canister system and single canister systems that people can actually then add on. We place them in a metal stand, and we actually put pressure gauges on them as well, because I just feel like it's better to know what's going on inside the system. And if I can see the actual pressure being measured, then I'm able to tell if that filter is getting clogged, et cetera, and going to be able to replace that filter. So that's just something that we do on our higher ended systems. And we recommend people to use those types of systems to add on to their existing system to be able to, again, be able to have multiple stages overall. But that really works for people that have a wet bay, or people that have really a larger coach or something that they have a lot of room to store things in, because canisters can be quite large overall. And not everyone wants to install one. Ours come in stands, as I said, so that they're actually meant to be used inside or outside. But even still, there's a lot of people who don't want to actually drill into their coach and install these types of things. So we actually have just actually applied for patents, and we're in the process now of getting ready to launch. It's in its final stages of going into production. But we've launched a product called the Dirt Guard. And what the Dirt Guard is it kind of combines that inline idea that we talked about earlier and that canister idea that we just spoke about as well. So this is somewhat of a hybrid, and it goes in between for the people that don't have a lot of space, or who are just like the convenience of inline type of filters, and they don't want to do either the expense, or they just don't have the room for canister type systems. We've invented the Dirt Guard, which actually attaches outside. It's inline, and it actually contains a 20 micron filter as a pre-filter. And then we've designed it so that you can take our inline filter and attach it directly to that. It nests inside. So we made it so it's smaller than just 2 filters in a row. So they nest together. And by doing so, allows you to hang it out underneath the faucet, or on the ground, or off the side of your coach, if that's what you'd like to do as well. And now what this gives you is a 20 micron pre-filter that is going to block out all the particulates. From there, you can go straight into your carbon filter. Now, we designed it so it fit both ours and granular carbon type filters as well. So if you want to just continue to buy those other types of filters, you can, and go ahead and use that with our Dirt Guard. Now our Dirt Guard is going to give that filter more protection by taking out all those particulates. Another thing as to why that's important, sediment is a real problem around the U.S. and other parts of the world as well, of course. But Anywhere there's hard water, generally sediment is an issue as well because they're directly linked together. But when you get sediment coming through, you'll notice it because quite often when you run your glass of water and you look at it, if you see a lot of things floating or cloudiness in the water, or there's just a lot of white specks inside, that's all sediment related. Could be rust as well, which is the brown water that you're seeing. All of that should actually be removed so it doesn't go into your carbon filter. And the reason why is sediment it acts like a coating. So when it comes into your carbon filter, it likes to coat things. So it would coat those granules. And then once they're coated in that sediment, everybody knows, if you've ever been in Georgia, the fine clays and things of that nature in those areas, all of that can coat your filter and coat your carbon. Once it's coated, it's going to continue to look like it's working, but in truth, the water has a barrier between itself and the water. And that sediment barrier between the two means that you're really not getting that interaction with the carbon that you're looking for. And of course, you won't know that because the water flow is really still unchanged. So you're really not getting the impact of that filter any longer when that happens. So the more you can take that sediment out, the better your carbon filter is going to work. And the better your carbon filter works, the better the water is going to taste and look and feel.
So the Dirt Guard, I think you had a demo of that at the Florida Super Show.
That's right. We just launched it at the Florida Super Show. Regrettably, it wasn't ready yet, so that was our launch plan, but we're in the final throes right now of it going into production. So we have production planned for the month of March, and we'll have it here in the marketplace. We hope available to everyone by the May time.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because it's a very small footprint compared to like the canisters and things like that. This looks like a much more compact solution.
Well, that's exactly what we had. Is we have a lot of feedback. I told you already that we're the owners, but we're also the people that may be responding and taking a look at all of the feedback coming in from consumers. And people ask us sometimes, this is too large. I'd love to have one of those canisters, but I just don't have the room. And a lot of that actually led to the development of this because we fully designed that here and developed that product based on what we felt was the needs out there, certainly our own needs as RVers, but what we feel a lot of people have. We've gotten a lot of good reaction on it. A lot of people have recognized that that's something that they had an issue with, but they didn't have a solution in the marketplace for. So we're happy to bring out that first solution.
Keith, will the Dirt Guard be, I'm putting up quotes, disposable? Do you have to change a filter inside of it, or do you change out the entire unit every 6 months or a year, or how does that work?
Our goal for it was to actually make a very strong housing overall, again, similar to a canister type system, and then make a replaceable filter that goes inside. And that filter that goes inside is a little bit unique. Actually, if you pull it out, you'll see what I mean. And then it looks a little bit more like an oil style type of filter. It actually is more of a cup actually than a normal filter that you made, which we designed it specifically so it could become very strong. The reason why is that we wanted you to have the opportunity to be able to take that filter out and use a kitchen scrubber and scrub off any surface debris that's on top of that to be able to make that filter last longer and be able to clean that off. So if you're in a particular campground that had a really terrible water, maybe it's a brand new filter, we didn't want that filter to get eaten up that quickly. So clean it off, wash it off, and replace it back for your next campground. In addition to that, we're actually including also an adapter that you can put on your hose end and actually backwash the filter. So by backwashing it, you can actually help remove some of the contaminants that are stuck inside, the sediments that have been lodged inside. If they're loose, they'll come out. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to clean it completely, because once they're stuck in there, they're pretty stuck. But it does allow you to blow out some of those and get a little bit longer life. We recommend that you would backwash it up to 3 different times, and then after that, it's time to replace the filter. Our intent was that it would be good for 6 months. For some people, that's going to mean a lot longer, and for other people, we hope that 6 months is pretty accurate overall. For full-timers, we thought twice a year was not unreasonable to replace it. And depending on which retailer they buy it out, a replacement pre-filter to go inside will be anywhere from $16.99 to $19.99, depending on where you buy it overall. So we thought that that was a reasonable price for being able to do that and to be able to get that level of cleanliness. So the one thing that people are going to be surprised at is when they take that filter out and they're going to see what that filter protected them from. And we think that that's going to be a really good education for people because it's an education for ourselves as well. Again, we talked about clear water, but you can have very clear water, and when you remove this and after using it for a number of months and see that it's all brown, well, all that came out of your water. So, give you a better understanding overall of really what you're removing.
Yeah, I think $40 for clean water is very reasonable.
We think so.
I never know when it's time to change a filter. Like, because you could be somewhere where the water is horrible and then you'd probably want to change it more frequently than if you're somewhere where the water is not as bad. And I heard you mention something a little earlier that you have like a PSI monitor on your canister system on each one so that you can monitor when it's time to change, if it's time to change the filter. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. You're just exactly right. And the way most people look at it is that unless they have a clear canister where they can see a color change in the filter itself and decide that when it's time to do it, which most people don't. Most filter canisters are recommended to be opaque, and that's just so that you don't get any sunlight into them and don't have any algae or anything like that growing in it. Really, a clear canister is only really good for those people that have very dark wells or some way of protecting that from sunlight. So most people's canisters are opaque, and they really don't have any way to understand other than time. Has it been long enough? I guess so. Now let's change it. And unless they see something where they've left them in so long that they're noticing flow rate issues, that'd be another way to be able to know if that needs to be changed out over time. But in order to give you a visual cue for that, we've added pressure gauges. Depending on what the actual pressure is, you can just monitor that, and you'll see one pressure gauge per canister for our dual canister system. When you see the pressure differential start occurring and you notice that one of those is starting to show that pressure differential, then most likely that needs to be changed out, and you can go ahead and change that out right then. We recommend if you ever see more than a 20% difference, time to change that filter out. You don't want to wait until it's fully clogged. And it's just going to give you a flow rate, maintain your flow rate, and just continue to give you a better quality experience overall. But again, so you can visually see what's going on as opposed to just remembering, when did I change it out? I don't know if you remember I never remember when I did my brakes. I never can remember when I changed my oil. Luckily, the dealership usually keeps up for that kind of stuff for me and I can ask them. But when it's yours, you have to actually got to remember all that stuff.
Yeah, I never remember any of that. I have a quick question to kind of circle back a little bit, Keith. You had mentioned adding the filter either by the spigot side or the right before it goes into the RV. Can you explain how it's different and which way is the proper way or the better practice to use?
Well, we'll say it in those terms because I think everybody can have their argument as to where they think is better to be overall. But our recommendations always are whenever you hook up, you always use a pressure regulator. So that's just to protect you and your rig overall, as well as protect the filter itself. Water hammers happen, and they're not something that happens that often, but they do happen. And generally, you don't want to be on the opposite end of one of those. So having that pressure regulator in there is a really good idea. But then the next stage we recommend is actually then attaching your filter either directly or with an attachment hose, a hose extend, to then attach your filter next. And the reason why is having your filter actually on the spigot side allows the spigot to have to carry the weight as opposed to that weight having to be carried by your water inlet. So if it's ever a problem, you really don't want to have to go through replacing that water inlet. It could ruin your day and it could ruin even a number of days until you actually get that repaired. Because of that, it's just not a quick and easy fix. And so our recommendation is put the filter on the spigot side just to prevent that weight from having to hang down, and or anybody running into the hose, tripping over it and pulling against it, and having that filter quite often there adds to that becoming an issue for your inlet. The second thing, though, it actually gives you a slightly higher pressure. And because that pressure is going through, there's a pressure drop that actually occurs from the hose itself. And so by going through the hose first, you actually have that lower pressure coming through your filter as opposed to the higher pressure that's coming straight off the spigot. So you gain a couple PSI by actually putting it over by the faucet. And sometimes that doesn't seem like very much, but we've had some customers tell us that made a big difference for them overall in regard to being able to get higher pressures out of it, especially if they have one of those flexible hoses that curl up on their own. They have a tendency to expand a lot, and by expanding a lot, you have a lot of pressure drop that actually occurs before your filter.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought about either of those things that you just said, but once you said it, it made a lot of sense.
We're trying to have everybody go down the path with us. We've learned some of these things ourselves as RVers, and obviously with the type of products that we're selling right now. And as we come across problems, we're trying to identify ways to solve those problems. And so anywhere and everywhere we can offer some of these tips, we're happy to do it.
And then you used a term that I'm not familiar with, so I'm sure some of our listeners may not be familiar with it as well, and that is a water hammer.
Well, a water hammer actually is when you have a buildup of pressure that is released all at once. And water itself is not compressible. So, you can have compressed air and you can have other things done, but you can't compress water. So water acts as I don't want to say it's more like a solid. Anybody that's a physicist is listening right now. Don't call us and don't send us emails on correction. The water hammer is a problem in the plumbing world. And what happens is when you have that large release of water all at once, that comes through, it comes through like a tidal wave. And whatever plumbing part it hits like a hammer. And the way this occurs is everybody turning on their faucet at once and everybody turning it off all at the same exact time. And it has reverberations through the whole system that come on board for all of it. So if you go to a campsite where there's a lot of people there in the morning, all those people get up and leave by 11 o'clock and there's fewer people there, you may have noticed that the pressures are a lot higher afterwards on the few people that are remaining there. Sometimes that higher pressure can also cause damage as well. So it's just, again, why we always recommend a pressure regulator to protect yourself. That'll keep that from getting through and getting into you and your system.
It sounded bad. So
yeah. Water hammers are, again, the bane of the plumbing world.
Yeah, it's in the RV when it happens, it's a pretty loud vibration sound. You can actually hear your tubing rattle from it.
That's true. And if you have some connections that are loose or you have some connections that are weak, that's where you're going to have a problem. So again, why that pressure regulator helps to protect you against all of that.
Where can listeners find out more about CLEAR2O and the products that you have?
Well, they can go to our website. That's probably the best place to go to get more information on our products, and it'll show our full line of products from all of our kitchen products through all of our RV type of products and RV filters as well, because we do make universal 2.5 by 10 inch filters for canisters as well for people who are buying just replacement filters. And that's at CLEAR2O.com. And again, that's CLEAR2O, not CLEAR2O. Like CLEAR2O.com. We sell many of our products on Amazon and Walmart.com as well. Actually, in a Walmart store, they can buy our inline filters, the green filter, on the shelf.
Do you offer any type of educational blogs or anything like that on your website?
We've recently started that, meaning in the last 6 months. We decided that there is an opportunity to be able to share some of the information that we have in a better way. We certainly talk at trade shows and things of this nature to people that can come by our booth. But in order to be able to get to other people, we've initiated some blogs. So on our website also, we have a listing of all of our blogs, and those help people understand anywhere from, flow rate, what flow rate's all about, to the different types of contaminants, and even the different types of filtration that they should be considering depending on their rig overall as well. So we started doing that, and we're doing a few blogs a month now. They can sign up as well, and whenever we put out a new one, they can get that sent to themselves by email.
Yeah, and I know I was at the Tampa Super Show and you were there as well, and it was hard to get to your booth on the day that I was there. It was pretty crowded. Definitely having that blog for people to read up on questions beforehand. Then when they come to the show, they know exactly what information they want to get from you and what products they want to check out.
Absolutely. And we're going to try to figure out ways to actually help people with that as well by putting better information out there, helping them to understand, because everyone's water filtration needs are different and everyone's RV is different. Not everyone has the exact same RV, of course. So how it's set up and what's available to them and what the water in their area is like is all different. So we've got some new ideas that came out of that show to be able to bring out some new products for next year as well.
Yeah, my wife already told me that we're going to get one of those, what's it called? The
dirt guard. Mm-hmm.
The dirt guard when it gets released, because she's very interested in that one.
I think it's going to solve a lot of people's issues, and I'll be very honest with you. I think when I was talking about the fact that you're going to see a color change and you're going to see what's in that actual filter, we've all gotten used to the fact that you see when you change out your air conditioning filter, sometimes you see how dirty it is, and if you're at my house, it's pretty dirty, and you get an idea of what actually pulled out of the air. Well, now you're going to see the same thing in a water filter. You're going to see what it actually is pulled out.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty cool. I think it sounds nice or good that you'll be able to see it, because I definitely relate to the AC unit, because I clean the filters in that, and you're right, they're pretty dirty. I have no idea what my filters look like though for my water when I change them out. I just replace them like you said earlier, just every 6 months, but I have no idea what it actually collected over those 6 months. It'd be interesting to see.
Our filters are rated for 1,000 gallons, but it definitely depends on the quality of water going through it overall. If it's poor quality, it's not going to last to that level. At the same time, most of the granular carbon filters are rated at 500 gallons. So I can tell you that's probably a couple months. So if you're changing them out at 6 months, you probably need to be changing them out 2 or 3 times more often.
Well, Keith, I think that's all of our questions. Is there anything that Sean and I might have missed or that you would like to add to the conversation before we let you go?
No, I think I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about filtration on stuff. So I appreciate you giving me that opportunity to help explain some of these things. I do think that the more you can educate the consumer out there, they want to know what's going on with their water. Most people are very concerned about it, and they just don't know what questions to ask sometimes. I think these are very helpful, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and educating us. It's been it's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
We would like to thank Keith for coming on and talking about CLEAR2O and filtration. Go to their website, CLEAR2O.com, to find out more about their products and, more importantly, the education on water filtration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your podcast platform. Tune back in 2 weeks for a new episode. Safe travels.
This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries, the best name in the RV and marine industry. These lithium batteries are designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty. The best solution for your battery anxiety. So go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Whether your adventure is on the road, on the water, or off the grid, Battleborn batteries keep you out there longer.